Uh, it's- Hello, what's happening, everybody? We're having a couple of problems on Periscope, but it's no big deal. They'll see us literally any second. And just as I say that, here we are. We're here. We're live everywhere. Uh,
All right, awesome.
Kennedy's here. Brandon's here. I love to always get like really hyped when we start an episode. Big things are happening. We're gonna eat hot sauce. Whatever kind of fun we're having. This is probably gonna be one of our least fun episodes because
Yeah,
we've spent this entire time talking about like structural shit in terms of like police abolition and police defunding. Why does it work this way? Why did it get so bad? What can we do about it? All this kind of shit. And like we haven't really sat and talked about like what are the consequences of the current system? Like
right.
what is the current system like and how did it like get there and what does it do to people? And we get all these idiots on Twitch and YouTube. We love you idiots. Thank you. All views matter. All that. That's fine. But like people come in and say like what have you thought about the risks? Do you understand how bad it would be if we changed anything? So I think the Breonna Taylor incident is a good illustration of, well, what are you getting if you keep this? And how long can we keep this? So I guess like the easiest way to talk about this, instead of like just starting with her murder, is to talk about what is a no-knock warrant and why are there no-knock warrants and who politically decided that was a good idea and put that in place. So the real origin of the no-knock warrant is based in the drug war. If y'all have ever seen the movie Goodfellas, where the cops like come down and they knock on your door and they have a battering ram and they knock the shit down, all that other shit. There's a rush to dispose of evidence or to run or to do this or to do that. There's an evidentiary benefit to just going into the house with a warrant because you can look around, you can see shit. And that moment is very important to police officers because shit that they like see that's out in the open that they didn't specifically have a legal ground to look for is still evidence that they can use like to charge you with and build a case. So no-knock warrants became like a thing. I don't really have like a lot to add about the background because generally when the police ask for something, they get it. And we have like 30 years of back and forth about why these are still a terrible idea. And in most jurisdictions, with a handful of exceptions, these are legal. One of the stories that always stuck out to me is that the police killed a white dude that was sitting in his own house, his own land. And the federal government wanted to like buy this land via eminent domain. And so there was a raid on his house, a no-knock raid, and the guy was shot. And so the feds were so like trying to have like a legal reason for why this dude was shot that they tried to find weed on his property. So they tried to find any kind of marijuana on this dude's property. And so they did a report and they were like, well, we feel like asset forfeiture motivated the raid in the report afterwards. And this was in the 90s, like the early 90s. This has been a problem since then. And I think the Breonna Taylor situation hits at exactly the right time because I think people are just so upset about like all of these consequence-free, fucking completely consequence-free murders that are happening with the police, not just with Breonna Taylor, but for years dating back.
Right.
Just like I got so depressed going to these fucking protests because so many of the protesters wanted to write all the fucking names, and the names were fucking in tiny text because you can't fit them on a sign. You just fucking can't. And
You
for
cannot.
all these names, there's nobody that's going to jail. There's nobody that's being punished. There's somebody facing consequences except for that one black cop that killed a white lady in Minnesota. That's literally the only fucking police officer that's going to jail for anything. And excuse me for feeling some kind of way about that. So the Breonna Taylor thing is even worse because it's not a motive of asset forfeiture. It's not a shootout of a drug lord and an innocent victim gets caught in the bystanders, although the police have tried to spin it that way of like, oh, we were open fired on and there was a crossfire and she was a tragic victim, and that's like not what happened.
Right.
The reason that makes this shit so infuriating is that Breonna Taylor died for fucking no reason. They went to the wrong house. They intended to apply this warrant on a completely different resident and came to her place anyway. And I want to kind of show y'all a video talking a little bit about like what her situation was before the raid happened. And her mom talked a little bit about some of the fears that she had for her daughter. It's like a minute and a half long, but I really think it's worth listening to. So I'm just going to like play it.
When news of the coronavirus emerged, Breonna Taylor's mother was concerned for her EMT daughter. Tamika Palmer tells people in this week's issue that she would often urge her daughter to be careful while working in the ER, but Taylor believes she would be safe. According to Palmer, her daughter told her, "Mama, I'm going to be okay. I've got to do what I've got to do."
Public service and helping others was important to Taylor. Her mother tells us that she would say, "If I get it, it's meant to be because I've got to go to work and I've got to do what I've got to do to help and do my part." But Taylor wasn't able to do her part. On March 13th, around 12:30 a.m., she was shot and killed in her home after 3 police officers investigating a drug dealer secured a no-knock search warrant. This allowed them to enter her home without warning. The attorney representing Palmer in a wrongful death lawsuit against the police officers says there was a loud banging, then the door flew off the hinges.
Taylor was asleep alongside her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. Thinking it was a break-in, Walker fired his licensed handgun, hitting one of the officers in the thigh. The police fired back more than 20 shots, hitting Taylor with at least 8 of them. Taylor's cousin tells people she was all about helping people, adding she was all about being there for those who couldn't really be there for themselves, or being there for those who might not have people to be there for them.
Palmer says her daughter's calling was clear from a young age when she would help her grandmother who had diabetes. As she got older, Taylor would help out disabled adults and drive people who needed rides to appointments or grocery stores. But Taylor's ultimate goal was to become a neonatal nurse. She loved babies. Taylor once told her mom, "If I get in there, I'll have them when they're at their best. I'll help them right there when they're at their best."
Yeah, how the fuck is a no-knock warrant even a thing that exists in the United States, where we have a culture where everybody is strapped anyway? If somebody comes into your house fucking guns blazing, isn't the fucking conservative consensus to blast somebody that busts into your house in the middle of the night? I feel like half of the conservative world view is based around like this fantasy of like, man, if somebody busts in my house in the middle of the night, my fucking dick will get hard. I'll click that shotgun on, boom, blow their fucking legs off, and it'll be cool. I'll be like John Wayne. I feel like that fantasy underpins like a lot of conservatism. And this is like, this will be misinterpreted when I say this, but this is like the archetypical conservative fantasy. A gang of people a fucking gang busts into your house and attempts to kill you. So of course you used your elite shooter instincts and immediately like killed the people that were breaking into your house, right?
How many times have we heard this good guy with a gun phrasing or narrative, right?
Right.
Like, and here's a situation where this guy is literally a good guy with a gun. He's a licensed firearm owner. He's a good person, and he's not doing anything wrong. And you know, what are you supposed to? How are you supposed to differentiate?
He should be able to smell bacon in the middle of the night and know it's the police, and then be like, "Oh, sir, wait, we're doing like I don't know what the fuck they want." But yeah, there's obviously there's a drug situation. They wanted to like fucking catch the drug guy and have evidence. And of course, the people who they were actually after were already in jail, which makes this even more of a mess and a clusterfuck. And the police report, I don't know if you want to go into this, but the police report is fucking blank. And I wish we had it here. I would put it on screen. The police report is effectively fucking blank. And it shows that it was released like, I think Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I don't know, but this thing is incredibly sparse. Like there's nothing there to
in it.
right. So anybody, if you find the Breonna Taylor police report, you can just Google it and look it up because we didn't like prep it. But you can find better paperwork that you have filled out in your life. They have like a box to check, like, did we force entry? And like, clearly, yes, you forced entry. There was a battering ram so that you can get in without using a knock. I mean, yeah. But, and it's also, they ask, are there any injuries from the incident? And they put in none. Right. This was, somebody was like annoyed at the idea of paperwork and was just like, because they are used to acting on this shit with impunity, like complete, total, who gives a fuck, who gives a shit impunity. So the paperwork was just a hurdle that they needed to get around. Honestly, it's really terrible. And the boyfriend got arrested too. I believe he got like charged with fucking attempted murder.
We can't even get these cops charged, but this guy's in jail and
aren't getting charged with the damn thing. Yeah, exactly.
Fucking ridiculous. It's just, yeah, when you look at this paperwork and you see that it's just like we say, it's just entirely blank. It just shows the utter disregard for human life that the cops have. And I would like to contrast that against what we just saw in that clip a minute ago. Breonna Taylor was an EMT. Like when people come in here in the comments and they post these stupid comments like, who do you want to come help you when you get your ass kicked? It's an EMT. Real talk. Like it's
more than a cop. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you want somebody to show up with fucking medical care. And like, that's honestly far more, staggeringly more important than getting justice or things like that, is somebody showing up to like stop your fucking organs from rupturing after you get your ass beat or whatever. Like, it's completely ridiculous when, like I said, when people ask this question, who do you want to show? It's literally Breonna Taylor. This is the kind of person that you want to show up in an emergency. People like this who have an actual dedication to like medical service.
Bro, we're doing an event on police abolition for my DSA chapter Saturday. I am officially stealing that. Don't worry, nobody's watching this. I'm officially stealing that because that's a fucking crazy fucking accurate point. That's crazy accurate.
I mean, it is what it is. You got to look at it and just say it. Like literally, these cops are going in. These are supposed to be the protectors. They're literally killing Breonna Taylor, somebody who is an actual somebody that you would want in an emergency. It's completely absurd. Like it's like they can't even uphold their fellow systems of service or anything.
I just want to I can't help but go back to this police report shit. I don't know if any of y'all watching ever read the magazine Creative Loafing. And if you're in the South, that's like an alternative newspaper. It's just like a weird free newspaper that gets handed out in cities. I'm like in my early 30s. And when I was younger, they were like this thick. And like half of it was like ads for fucking porn. But the other half was like journalism and shit. So there was a section in those magazines called The Blotter. And they would find police blotter stories from police reports. And they would find the weirdest shit that was in the police reports. And they were a couple of paragraphs, even really minor incidents. Like there's a crazy man who thought he was the son of God and cracked an egg and ran the egg over his forehead and took eggs and threw them at his ex-girlfriend's car. No one was injured. Would be 2 paragraphs, like just random weird Florida man type shit. Are full police reports. So for a civilian homicide to go through the police report and have like the most perfunctory and dismissive amount of explanation is like literally, it's fucking it's outrageous. It's outrageous. I don't understand why that report was written the way it is. And it seemed like they wanted to prosecute the boyfriend. it seemed like their goal before there was like a national uprising was they wanted to meet like an arrest quota, or they just wanted like plausible deniability. And they knew that they were going to have like a bullshit story, and that the less shit was written down, the more room that they have to make shit up later. And I want y'all to understand, when we had that episode a few days ago talking about like, why do police have so much leverage? It's because they have legal protection to do shit like this, because they don't have to make statements like in writing about what they saw and did when there is a fatality. They fill out the report, and now they all have time to go get their story straight. If there were, for example, a law that you have to sit down with someone and go on the record immediately, like in the same way you get arrested and you go to the station and you've got to fucking get your ass on record immediately, and the cops are going to compare your story that you came up with on the spot to evidence, and they're going to say, what's going on with your story? Is this true? Is this accurate? Is this not? That is basic shit. Inkjet, hello. How are you today? I hope you're having kind of a good time or a decent time. Whatever's going on, I hope it's happening for you. Yeah, feel free to share your thoughts and reactions as we talk about this. So the police have so much leverage to fucking cover up their story. It's just totally disgusting. And cops know that they're going to be on camera. They know that they're going to have to answer for shit like this, but they still do it. Even when they know that the statement is like horse shit, even when they know that they're going to be recorded. It's just, it's like sadism. They do the shit to people to show that they can do it and get away with it. Just like if you ever have like an abusive fucking boyfriend in your world and the boyfriend beats shit out of you, like they're not just doing it because they got mad. They're doing it because like they can do it. If there was like a world where all the women were like 7.5 feet tall and fucking brolic, there wouldn't fucking be domestic abuse, because you physically wouldn't be capable of, I'm mad, so I'm going to do this. Like you would be mad and fucking suck it up. Just like conservatives do when they're with their boss and they're fucking mad at their boss for fucking with their wages and their income and their time and their livelihood, but they can't say shit because they don't have the fucking leverage to do it. I don't mean to get like deep into a fucking socialist philosophy, but like we fucking all know that this is basic shit. You do not need a master's in political education to understand the basic power dynamic at play here. They can do less and can give less of a shit because they can give less of a shit. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I just want to, ask anybody out there who's watching to think about this. Like, if you've ever had to file a police report in your life for some reason, maybe something was stolen from you. And like, I've been in the situation where like, I've reported a theft a long time ago when I still thought the police did things, when I didn't know better. And like, if you've ever been through one of these situations, the amount of proof that you're expected to provide for your story as a citizen in the justice system is massive. If you don't have video, if you don't have this, if you don't have that, if you don't have an email from this person, describing exactly what you're saying and like verifying it or whatever, like if you don't have like a stack of shit when you come into the courtroom trying to prove that somebody wronged you, they're basically like, I don't know, most of the time. But a cop can just be like, this is what happened, and just say some shit. Just say anything.
Yeah.
Not provide one shred of evidence to back up any of the claims that they're making, and it'll just be accepted as, well, they're a cop, so they're probably telling the truth. Just that type of like immunity has to go away. It's ridiculous.
All of these folks, I hate to like fucking sound rude. Well, I don't hate to say it. It just must be said. So I'm saying it. All these cops want to be fucking Navy SEALs, right? They're never going to actually be in the fucking Navy. They're never going to be on the mission to get Bin Laden. They're never going to, do any of that like real Army Ranger type Marine shit that they want to do. So they're all excited to do that domestically to American citizens. Like, we're zero dark 30, put on the fucking glasses, put on the fucking goggles and throw out a flashbang. They love the fucking flashbangs. That's why people get killed by those all the time. Because like they want to like cosplay as soldiers without like worrying about the shit soldiers worry about when they go overseas. So these raids have been happening, and I've got the numbers in front of me. 92 people died last year in no-knock raids. So this is not a fucking fluke incident. This is not a weird accident that the George Soros is blowing up out of proportion to make people mad, to start writing so that Bill Gates can seize control with Corona 5G, get the facts about coronavirus. This is just like shit that's going constantly, and it's going constantly, and the media isn't covering it because there's not like an outrush of popular outrage. And for the people who are like, well, you know, XXX white guy got killed in a no-knock raid, why isn't Soros boosting that? I don't know. Maybe George Soros would boost the shit if you gave a shit about it, right? The news media would boost it if y'all hit the streets like black folks are hitting the streets. Maybe, and also maybe it's because it's a tighter sense of community. Like maybe people like know these people, like, and don't have as much. I don't know. I don't want to get it. I don't want to get into all that, but it's just a total mess. It's a total disaster. Any other job, if you get injured or if there's an incident, it's a very large deal. Okay. It's a very large deal. That's all I can really say about it.
I think this is just really like you mentioned, like, you know, these like this like Navy SEAL cosplaying type shit that the cops love to do now. And that's like really at the core of this whole issue is like the war on drugs. And like the fact that the war on drugs is like, it has really created this highly militarized mentality. And now I don't believe that the cops would be perfect even if Reagan never existed. Let's not, you know, make no bones about it. But the war on drugs has been extremely destructive in terms of like getting to this horrible point that we're at now, because we've seen when wars are conducted by our military that like, we know that our military is willing to justify all kinds of things in the name of war, right? Donald Rumsfeld said that looting in Iraq was a step towards democracy, right? Like back during the war, in the Bush era. Like it's that's what we see now with the cops. They have turned on like everybody around them. And if you aren't a cop or friends with a cop, then you are on the other side of this war. The war on drugs is against you. And it doesn't matter if you're a drug user. It doesn't matter if you are or you aren't. It doesn't matter at all. The war on drugs is still against you. You know, they'll plant drugs on you. You know, even if you're not a drug user. Texas cops were famously, you know, ousted a few about 10 years ago now by a former cop named Barry Cooper. If any of you have never heard this story, search his name up and look into his story. He was a cop. He was responsible for dozens and dozens of drug busts personally. And he switched sides and he started exposing how the cops were planting drugs on people, how they were framing them, how they were incriminating them for things that they didn't do. And he eventually fled the country because they were fucking with him so much. The DEA was raiding his house every week. Can you imagine?
I would like
no-knock raid. We're talking about no-knock raids right now. A no-knock raid by the DEA every week at some random time. You don't know when it's coming.
I would like a no-knock raid against these cops and this judge that issued the warrant. I would just like someone to
about it.
I would like someone to just bust in on them in the middle of the night and do it like an interview with them afterwards. Like, how was that? You gotten your shit right? I mean, assuming that they don't like have guns and start shooting back, in which case that would be a tragic situation. Yeah, it's terrible. And most people already oppose no-knock raids once they're told what they are. And that's even like in an extremely neutral sense of police officers feel that doing this kind of thing can something, you know, that phrasing has a big impact on how people respond to polls. But the poll that I saw about it a couple of days ago, it was extremely neutral phrasing, and the majority of people are against this, and that number is only gonna go upwards. The thing that has bummed me out about the Breonna Taylor situation, the entire time we've been talking about George Floyd, I feel like she's kind of gone under the rug. And I guess part of that is because the media has so much control over like public consciousness. Like there's a video, so you can beat the shit out of somebody all the time, but when there's a video like the Ray Rice video, then suddenly there's more action because being able to see something triggers like our sense of outrage or whatever.
Well, even George Floyd, we know that the story that they initially told about George Floyd, literally every single detail that they basically gave us was false.
Yeah.
More or less every single, like, if you go down the list, look at the original story that the police put out about this is what happened to George Floyd, then go look at what everybody knows now and the video and watch the videos. They're horrible, but like, you know, sometimes you just got to stomach this stuff if you really want to know and you want to be sure what happened. Like, otherwise you could take our word for it, but if you want to know, go read the original police description of what happened to George Floyd and then go watch the video and you'll see.
The police description is the most disgusting thing. They make it sound like he was like in the midst of a crime and he was fighting them. And then he just like grabbed his chest while he was beating the shit out of the officers. Yeah, he had a respiratory problem while he was resisting arrest. And he fell over and cops immediately attempted to revive him. And they got him in an ambulance and he passed on the way to the hospital. The police were wearing body cams. And that's it. That's literally, did I literally not accurately describe the report? Okay. It's just so slanted. And when you read that report and then you see the video, it will like, hopefully like shatter your belief and trust in literally anything that cops say in a way that like, I think we talked about this yesterday. Like white people have got to watch these videos because you were raised with a different interaction. Like not even like a fucking bad thing, but you were just raised a different interaction. So somebody's got to like, you know, sometimes telling you something is not always enough and you've got to like see it. And how do you feel? Well, go ahead.
I was to say, let's flip the script too. Let's flip the script for a second. Let's recall a news story that was just a big deal a few weeks ago and things were a little less crazy. Let's remind ourselves of a woman named Tara Reid, who has been accusing Joe Biden of inappropriate behavior. Tara Reid, how often did you hear people say, well, some of the details in her story don't add up. She's told a few different versions of this story, you know, and it's like, we're not talking about major details. You know, this is just stuff. Anybody who understands trauma understands the way that these stories are hard for people to recall, that different details are going to surface at different times, and that the story is going to be a little inconsistent with a lot of traumatic stories. That's just how it is. Anybody who understands trauma knows this. But like, people were picking apart these little details of her story. Can we trust her story? Can we trust her story?
They're just trying to.
Fuck is that for the cops? Ever?
None of these Biden libs. But they know. The thing that makes me discouraged about politics more than anything else is everybody is equally intelligent. I feel like everybody knows what's going on. We're all just fucking playing semantic games with each other, and nobody wants to like, aside from like a slice of people who cosplay as moderates, but then they are using the same rhetorical games of being, I'm the ultra logic person. And education is not a cure for that because, and this is another reason why when we talk about police reforms, fucking training is not a good reform. And Janos talked about this, but I didn't get to elaborate on Janos's point. Maybe I did. I don't remember. But in politics, we have lots of people who use their education to be insincere. And they learn the words to use, and then they just, you know, and if you were to do that with the police would be like, oh, we saw her, she was valid, there was an incident, like they're just talking, they're just using words. So the thing that is actually at the core of this shit is the relationship of power. So if you do not have power, this shit happens all the time to you, period. And that's it. So one of the things that can build you power is doing these protests and closing the street and shutting down business across the country so that if this shit's not getting resolved, shit's not getting resolved. And And that is something that was able to happen with great effect. And I think people, for a lot of different reasons, they were stuck inside. They wanted a reason to leave the house. And there's just, this is happening too much. This shit's happening way, way too much. So there was a law passed, and I guess I can just pull up the video, and we can talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this law that passed, and how much it is and how much good it will do, and maybe what solutions should be pursued in a more long-term sense.
The city of Louisville, Kentucky has outlawed no-knock warrants months after the death of Breonna Taylor, who was shot to death in her bed.
It means that she have saved someone else.
On March 13th, police executing a warrant used a battering ram to enter the apartment where Breonna lived with her boyfriend. Officials say police believe the apartment was receiving packages meant for a drug dealer. While the police report states the officers identified themselves upon entering, Breonna's boyfriend claims they did not, and he shot at police officers, believing they were illegal intruders. Officers say they returned fire in self-defense and Breonna was killed.
Is she alert and able to talk to you?
No, she's not. Breathe.
But even though Breonna's law has passed, her mother, Tamika Palmer, says her job is not over. The police officers involved in her daughter's killing have not been charged and are still on the job. And she says she won't rest until justice is done.
I hate doing this, but because of who my daughter was, I have to do it. Because of what happened to her, she deserves justice.
For InsideEdition.com, I'm Mara Montalbano.
Before that was said in the video, I was sitting there, I was watching, I was thinking, like, why do we have to do this shit? Like, I've said this in the past, like when Leia was talking about, we've got to mobilize people for politics. It's like, why the fuck should anybody be mobilized for politics? Politics fucking sucks. And most of the time we're arguing about shit that shouldn't be political. Like, we're like, we don't want to die on a fucking increasingly heating planet. We don't want to go to Iran to go fight people that aren't that different from us. Name something. Oh, we don't want our Social Security to get fucking liquidated out from under us and sent to, like, buy Jeff Bezos 50,000 new pairs of slippers. This is another situation where none of us should be doing this shit. Nobody should be spending all week fucking marching till your fucking feet get hurt walking around in a circle. Trying to arrest one cop, and as a stretch goal, like 3 cops. Think of all of the fucking collected energy that's going into just treating like 1 or 2 people like they did something that was criminally negligent, which they clearly did. It's like the amount of effort and hassle is just unreasonable. And it's shit that shouldn't exist. And unfortunately, like, this bill as it is does not really have the teeth that you would want. It's an ordinance, and instead of it being a no-knock raid, you have to knock and identify yourself. So that's police, and then you have to do that for 15 seconds. Come to the door, police. And really 15 seconds is not enough to flush your drugs if you're a drug operation. The problem is there's a loophole in the bill, which is extreme circumstances or exigent circumstances. I don't have the text in front of me, but there's a circumstances clause, and the whole point of what we've been talking about this entire fucking half hour, cops are liars. So they'll just be like, yeah, man, there were extravagant circumstance. What's the word? Yeah, whatever the circumstances were, there were those. We had to get in there. They'll just fucking make some shit up.
There'll be a part on the form where it says, were there extreme circumstances? You check yes or no, and then you're supposed to write like what those were, and that part's just blank.
That part will just be blank.
Like they just check yes. That part's blank. Every police report just reads that way now. When you create these exceptions, this is something that that lawmakers love to do now. Conservatives love it. Neo-libs love it. Like, this has become so popular in American politics, and it just sucks all the time. It just sucks all the time. All of our laws now have some backdoor loophole in them. They all have some fucking, oh, it's okay to actually dump toxic sewage in the river as long as you make at least $10 million per year or whatever. Like, there's always some stupid shithead clause, and then that clause just gets abused by all of the bad people that the law was designed to stop. And people will be excited seeing this law. Oh, thank God the no-knock warrants are going to stop. They're not going to stop. They'll probably slow down 10, 20%. And then the rest of them, they'll just check that extravagant circumstances box. Fuck you. It was, there was a dog maybe.
There's a dog barking, real scary dog.
They were holding carrots in their hands. The people that we shot,
I smelled Domino's, and Domino's is delicious. Had to get in there.
Had to get in there for the Domino's. Yeah, whatever
bullshit they want to say. So there's not like a wide range of solutions. Thank you. Yeah, I know what it makes sense. It's because that's why we said it. But okay, thank you. There's a reason. Like, this person threw me off of my point that I was attempting to make, which is, all of these reforms are all like fine for a press release and printing out a little plaque and showing it to the camera. But y'all, listen, we talked to y'all about what the solution was as soon as we started talking about the issue, which is, this shit is not about the fucking procedure. It's about the political power of the police, because it's their ability to do this kind of shit and be insulated from consequences. So if you care about this shit, do not believe in any of these fucking laws that the city councils are passing. Ask for budgets. Don't give a fuck about nothing else but what is the budget that's going to this institution. Because if they have the budget, then they have the political power. That's it. Any kind of fucking law that you want to pass, they got to fill out a form, they got to wait. They'll just say, fuck you. And when you have political power, you can say fuck you and get away with it. So let that be the fucking main thing that you take away today.
And I want to shout out, like, this is not something, it does not matter who the fuck you vote for president. None of that's going to affect this. Nope. What is going to affect this is, who are your county commissioners, who's on your city council, people like that. And I want to shout out, I have an interview coming out, a podcast interview coming out right after this ends. We'll be releasing that with Mariah Parker. And Mariah Parker is working on a 10-year plan. Unfortunately, this isn't in the app because she just announced this. But she's working on a 10-year plan to, like, basically completely defund the police and replace it with other services. And, like, that's something that she's working on with her other, like, lawmakers there. And I'm sure if it was up to her, it'd probably be faster, but 10 years is probably as fast as she can get these fucking slow folks around her to, like, commit to.
And 10 years is not bad, man.
It's not bad. Years. It's not bad. I'm just giving her the credit because I know she's
correct. And for those of y'all that follow me, you saw me and Mariah hang out on the election night live stream with Khalid Kamau, Our Revolution Georgia, DSA, Working Families. Sorry, we held a co-stream of the entire Georgia progressive movement for 5 hours, dog. It was very long. Loyal fans of this show were watching the Rachel's birthday stream, which was happening at the exact same time. So that's why I wasn't there, by the way. I was doing the election night thing.
But see, back to Mariah for a second. I just want to say, like, go look at what Mariah is doing and go find your county commissioners and city council people and say, this is what I want.
And if you're not, if you're
not on this level, I'm going to find a Mariah Parker to run in my district. I'm going to find somebody like that to run in I'm going to find, one of these people who's out here, who's been in the streets doing the work, and we're going to run them.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. That's all that needs to be said. So, Kennedy, do you have that note? Would you like to read it?
I can read this statement.
We had a couple other people, but they didn't come through in a timely manner. So
we asked.
Hey, listen, and by the way, you can do it at any time. Like,
yes, we can. This is unfortunately nothing is going to bring Breonna Taylor back. So this is a subject that unfortunately we're
Will not
probably
go
still
away.
going to be talking about because this is, and like we say, there's nothing being done right now. That's the conclusion, unfortunately, that we're at, is nothing is really actually being done. So
Yeah.
so we probably will be talking about this again. So if you didn't get, we asked people to send us something that you had written, or send us some audio or some video just talking about Breonna. We got only a couple of responses, but we got one really powerful one, and I do want to read it. And again, if you want to send something, especially after you watch this and you've kind of learned some things,
Yeah, just send it to us.
just send it to us and we'll air it at a later date. But we do have one very powerful note. I don't know if this viewer would want her name mentioned. So
yeah, don't. And we'll credit them later if they.
Yeah, if you want credit, you know who you are.
Yeah.
Can
you read it or?
A viewer sent this in, and I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
Breonna's death is a perfect example of a disproportionate police response to drugs, whether that be personal use or sale. No knocks were designed to keep drugs from being flushed, but it's not worth someone's life to catch a drug dealer. A dealer is a symptom anyway, not the cause of a problem, especially when one of the worst drugs, alcohol, is legal and widely available. I can imagine a world where an unweaponized task force finds out that strong drugs are being dangerously used and goes to talk to the users to see if they need help mitigating risk or therapy to curtail use. Drugs have been illegal on paper, but the people who suffer the most are Black, Indigenous, people of color. There are a million stories of white people who get away with drug use and sale, and Breonna's case shows that it is not just people directly involved. Anyone is at risk of being accused of something that the police have been allowed to kill over. Part of justice for Breonna will be making her death the last, decriminalizing drugs, disarming those investigating dangerous drug use, and educating about safe drug use. The cops who shot her need to be banned from having guns, as they are clearly a lethal combination of racist and trigger happy. I hold her family and boyfriend in the light.
That was really well said, and I don't want to add nothing to it. So thank y'all for watching, and yeah, we'll talk to y'all again after a while. Bye bye.